Okay, I've just come off of watching CNN for I don't know how many hours, right? And it's garbage. Come on. I know that people want Trump to fail and all of that, and they hate Trump, but it's garbage, and we're going to get into why. Also, I get these videos. I subscribe to Meidastouch, and I get video after video about how things are going so wrong for Donald Trump. And they obviously have a dislike for Donald Trump. And it leads people to think, his end is coming, the end is coming, they're going to get him, and everything's going to be fine once they do that. I'm here to say that even though I like Meidastouch, don't get me wrong, you're getting a lot of smoke blown up your ass by these people, because the reality of the Trump regime, I guess as we'll call it right now, is that Trump is exposing what the United States has been for a very, very long time. And he's actually, even though he's a habitual liar, is being very honest about it. Okay? So I think this dream that people have that, Trump is going to be gotten rid of and everything's going to return back to normal and everything's going to be fine is a pipe dream. Because the Americans, in reality, are seizing this moment to live out, to live out their final plan. So let's go back in history, okay? The thing that people are complaining about right now, outside of the United States, right, is that this plan for globalization is falling apart and they are being beaten up by the Americans, who are now throwing huge tariffs on them, right? And the thing about globalism is that it was something that the United States was very interested in after World War II. But the rules of globalization and globalism, certainly the United States would not have signed up on this if it did not favor them, and it's always favored them. Okay? And then later on, we get into... Oh, my dog's just... I thought she was coughing. She's just making a bed. Later on, we get into the concept of the petrodollar. So the point becomes that if you need energy to run your civilization or country, wherever you are, you're going to need some greenbacks in order to do that. And that is going to maintain the value of the dollar. I know a lot of people say that it is the American excellence, that maintains the value of the dollar. Horse shit. It is a fixed game. This is why people like Trump say, hey, if you try to buy oil without the dollar, we're coming after you. Don't try to do that. Don't try to make a trade arrangement outside of us. We'll come after you. Because it's a little bit of a sore spot and a weak spot because they depend on this. Now, I have a list here of things that I wanted to discuss. So I want to make sure that I actually look at it. So globalism and globalization, we can all remember back in the 80s and 90s, people showing up on television saying globalization is a great thing. It's great for the working class. What's going to happen is that societies where people do not have are going to raise up because they're going to get jobs, and yes, there may be some hurt to the American system because things are going to be balancing out, but in the end, it's all going to be great for everyone. The reality of globalization is that greedy American corporations ship jobs overseas in order to destroy the bargaining power of the working class. Now, some people might say, well, that's still good because that's jobs overseas, and it's raising their standard of living. But hold on. The other thing that happened was if anyone in any of these other foreign countries raised up and tried to have a union, they would shut down the shop and move somewhere else. That is the reality. Okay? And I've also mentioned the petrodollar. So let's get down to the main complaint that Trump, or Dump as I call him, and Nutlick, and Besant, and all these other morons have. They have trade deficits. They have trade deficits with almost everyone, it seems, right? Why does the United States have trade deficits? Is it because the people in the United States are so great, right? That they generate so much wealth that they can buy things? No. Americans are no better than anyone else on the face of the planet. This is the reality. Because of the petrodollar and having the reserve currency of the world, no matter how much debt so far the United States has, that dollar doesn't go down too much in value. Therefore, what happens in the United States is that they spend and spend and spend, and I'm talking about the government, and I'm talking about companies, and I'm talking about people. They spend and spend and spend, and they are never punished for that like other countries are. Therefore, after all of this, these decades of globalization and using the petrodollar, what happens is the United States becomes, and the consumer in the United States becomes the consumer of last resort. So this creates almost like a huge suction where goods go to the United States. Because they have all the spending power, because they have the petrodollar, they are the ones that are benefiting from globalization. Right? What happens when they're sucking up all of these goods is that they get a trade deficit. And we're going to get into where they don't have a trade deficit, and it is the weak spot of the United States, which must be destroyed, in my opinion. We will get to that, but we're talking about goods. With goods, they have huge trade deficits because they have so much money. Why do they have so much money? Because that money has not been degraded by their debt. That's the reality, America. You have a huge trade deficit because you have a buffer against all of your spending that no other country in the world has. Okay? Now, when I'm speaking to Americans, here's the weird part about this. There is tremendous amounts of poverty in the United States, and the working class is treated like absolute shit. A lot of states, you will not get severance if you're laid off. You can work for a company for 10 years, get laid off, you'll get no severance. And Americans like it this way. Well, at least the upper class do. This prevents investments in many other countries around the world. Why would you invest in a country where it's difficult to simply lay someone off? There's an expense to it. When you can invest in the United States where people are treated like shit. I've seen so many people say this on investment shows, right? On Bloomberg and stuff. What they are essentially saying is, why would I invest in Europe where people are treated as humans when I can invest instead in the United States where people are literally manure to be stepped on? So this is the weird part about this. The United States is in a very privileged position. Their military has something to do with it as well, but we'll get back. Well, no, we won't get back to that. Come on, we all know this. They're in a very privileged position, yet they have probably the highest incarceration rate in the world. They treat people like shit. There's no severance. Healthcare is a fucking joke for anyone who's poor. People go into poverty and commit suicide because their healthcare bills are so fucking high. It is an absolute joke of a country, and it was a joke before Trump showed up. This is what's pissing me off. Everyone's like, well, Trump's the problem. Is he? Let's look at American involvement in Central and South America. I've just got a list here. I'm not going to get into it too much, but the point is this. As an American, do you understand that your government hasn't been involved in coups, has been involved in installing dictators because they are not happy with how things are going in Central and South America? I'm just going to name off the countries here. I'm just doing a search. United States involvement in regime change in Latin America. This is on Wikipedia, history portion. Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Haiti, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Venezuela. Don't paint this fucking picture to me that before Trump came along, everything was fine and dandy in the United States. Inside the United States, it's been shit for a lot of people. And outside of the United States, people have been disappeared at the hands of the American government. Coups d'etats have occurred at the hands of the American government. Arms have been sent at the hands of the American government. Go and look up the Ollie North trials. I was going to say, you fucking idiots, because I'm an asshole. But not everyone is. But I'm like, come on. Get a fucking grip. Let's go back to my list of things we were going to talk about. So we've talked about why the United States is the consumer of last resort, and it's absolutely planned that way. Now you have crybaby Trump coming on saying, we have trade deficits. No wonder you have trade deficits, because you can spend and spend and spend, and your dollar is still strong. That's on fucking you. You fucking moron. And everyone that reports to him and goes on and on and on about this bullshit, they're all morons, right? Anyway, I just want to go into the end of this now. So I think I've had my say about all of that stuff. Here's the thing that I'm saying. Everyone is hoping that Trump just disappears, right? And I want to be fair to these people. The reality is, Trump has a brain. It's really hard to, how do you phrase this? Trump is absolutely out of his mind with a scatterbrain approach to everything. That is now being reflected on everything that's going on in the United States. Isn't this incredible? That one person who is so incompetent can cause this chaos throughout the country, right? And certainly people want to get rid of that. Who wouldn't want to get rid of that? But it's not just Trump. Like, first of all, let's look at it this way. He has full support from the GOP. In polls, Republican voters are more favorable of the Republicans than Democrat voters are in favor of the Democrats. Which means this is America, and this is the America you have to deal with. It is a country that is on the decline. It now has a grifter running the country. What makes you think anything's going to get better in the future? I have absolutely no faith that anything's going to get better in the future. And as a matter of fact, I see this as a window to get the United States off of the world's backs, because all Trump is doing is being honest. He's saying we have the military because the United States did not want other countries to have strong militaries. We have the military, we have the Petrodollar, and we will destroy you if you do anything against us. That's always been the case with the United States. The only difference is now the United States is treating Europe and Canada the same way it treated Central and South America. That's all that's happened. Everyone is in a state of shock. How could he be doing this? He's treating you the same way the United States has treated others. And you are offended. But the United States is at their end game now, and their end game is AI. Their belief is that if they can control AI, and you see news, if you watch the news, you see advertisements from lobbyists. We must not lose the AI battle with China. That is their focus. Their battle right now is to win the AI war and to completely take over the world based on AI. Okay? Because they do not believe that other countries are going to get to their level. And this is what I want to say, and no one's going to listen to me until it's too late, that other countries must do to the United States. The service industry in the United States is the biggest industry, and the software industry is the biggest industry. It is very weak right now. The United States is laying off and laying off and laying off and getting rid of some of their best talent in software and spending billions of dollars on NVIDIA AI chipsets. This is the time for governments around the world to abandon United States services. Get them out of your government. Start to prohibit investment in these companies. Why? Because they are using that technology against you. That is their absolute plan. This is the weak spot of the United States. It's time for it to be destroyed. If you're still running Microsoft in foreign countries after the shit that we have put up with from the United States government, you are a fool and a laughingstock. They must be gotten rid of. They will not adhere to international rules. We know this. Same thing with Google. Same thing with Apple. Apple's trying to be the nice guy, but the government will force their hand. So there's a war going on right now, and I've talked about this in prior videos. There is the war against Canada, and I'm in Canada, to make us the 51st state or to destroy us. But that's only a very small part of the war. The war is that the United States wants complete control over everything in the future in these areas where they have had control since World War II. And foreign governments have to be smart and have to, the United States is weak right now. I guess this is my last point. People see Trump perhaps as being tough and strong. But a country is not as strong as its leader. A country is as strong as its systems. The fact that Trump can just sign shit and stuff gets done shows a weakness, not a strength. The United States is absolutely weak. They do not have a system to protect themselves from Donald Trump while he tries to destroy other countries. They are weak. Now is the time to act. Things are not going to get better just because they get rid of Trump. A lot of these tariffs will still stay, and now we have seen what their end game is. So I'm assuming foreign governments in places like Europe, Canada, Mexico, Central and South America, they know what's going on. I don't have to say anything to them. But to regular people who think that Donald Trump is the problem, I'm talking to you and saying he's part of the problem, but he's not the absolute problem. We're coming to the end game with the United States. Okay? Anything much else? No, go and read up on globalization. Do some history research on people that came up on television talking about how globalization is going to be great for the working class, which it wasn't. Look up the petrodollar. Look at all the coups and involvement in Central and South America that the United States had. It's disgusting. Look up consumer of last resort. Look up why the dollar is strong, even though there's massive debt, right? Look up incarceration rates in the United States and poverty rates. We have nothing to gain from the American system. We don't want it. We want societies where people work at decent jobs and have decent lives, and they are not treated like shit. That's not the American way. Donald Trump is just showing us that now. But it hasn't been the American way. Thanks for watching. Have a good night, and I hope you enjoyed my weird video. Thanks.